Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great. It's a great day to break down all things Week 6 rankings. As always, at the end of the show, we will get to your live start sit questions. So appreciate you guys always sending those in. In the meantime, running back, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight ends in that order. Risers, fallers, sicko starts, and of course, some Hartitz heaters along the way. As always, though, I am joined by a man with very, very, very nice hair. He's also pretty smart too, I guess. Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. What's up, Dwain?
What's up? If you see my hair blowing, it's because the leaf blower across the street has a Boeing 747 engine apparently attached to it. I'm pretty sure there's not a house across from my street anymore. I think the house is gone. I can't see because I pull the shades. But if the windows blow out and the hair gets kind of messed up, that's why, guys.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, Dwain. America loves a comeback. You know, sometimes you just got to dust yourself off and move on to the next play, which is exactly what we're going to do here on today's Fantasy Live show. As always, we don't care if you're 0-5, 5-0. Most important thing is getting that Week 6 W. And accordingly, let's start trying to do just that. It is time for our DraftKings opening lines. Just a handful of injury notes to run through, as we always do to start off the show. Dwain, starting off with the 49ers graveyard. That always seems to be getting more and more members. Right now, though, it is just the usual suspects. Mac Jones expected to start again, with Brock Purdy still not practicing due to a toe. Ricky Pearsall also not expecting to play due to that knee injury. Luckily, though, no George Kittle. Not luckily for that, but I should say Juwan Jennings is actually returning to a limited practice. He's been dealing with an ankle and rib issue. So looking at this 49ers game, it is going to be a the late afternoon Sunday variety, and we have had situations where Juwan Jennings specifically has been more of a game time decision. So we'll see what happens, Dwain. In an ideal world, he's limited today. He's full on Friday and doesn't even have a status. I would be kind of surprised, though, personally, if he's not listed as questionable going to Sunday. So knowing that Juwan is a bit banged up, that said, big time upside if no Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle again. How are you feeling about firing up Jennings as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type ahead of this winnable matchup against the Buccaneers?
Yeah, I mean, if Jennings is ready to rock, and like you said, that's always the iffy part. We're obviously going to give him a little bit of an upgrade on this news, but we do have Kendrick Bourne as well. That would be the next guy we would probably expect to jump in. On this very show last week, guys, in the start sit, the Friedman, the one and only wet blanket Friedman, actually endorsed with a warm blanket Mr. Kendrick Bourne, and that did come through. He had a 25% target share in that game, 24.2 fantasy points. And then the other name outside of Jennings to remember would be Jake Tunges again. So Tunges has done a nice job with his opportunities. Like, it's not like, changing your whole fantasy season. But in the last two games, 14.8 and 17.1 fantasy points. He's had target shares of 12 and 23%. So not like super high target earner on the year, but he is a guy they use once they get down into the red zone. He's got 22% of their end zone targets on the season right now with George Kittle out.
Tight end 8 in overall PPR points this season, Dwain. Life comes at you fast. Shout out Jake Tunges. So, yeah, again, Juwan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne, assuming Pearsall is out, going to be in that wide receiver 3 mix. Wouldn't exactly call either must starts, but again, certainly have seen this 49ers offense still keep on doing good things with Mac Jones under center. Otherwise, we have Lamar Jackson still not practicing. Looks like it will be Cooper Rush or Snoop Huntley again. Also, Dwain, Kyler Murray not practicing with a foot issue. It is now starting to look like we could perhaps see Jacoby Brissett under center. You do handle all of our projections at fantasylife.com. Would you actually be downgrading the Cardinals' overall passing yards ahead of this matchup if we do have Jacoby instead of Kyler?
Yeah. So, I mean, I honestly don't think I'm going to change the passing projections that much, Ian, just because Kyler hasn't done that much this year. Like, I mean, he's barely, I think, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but like 205 a game. Actually, I think he's below 200 yards per game this year. He's never really been a high passing yards per game guy over the last 3 years. We did have those couple of seasons early on. So I don't really change my outlook for really any of the Cardinals passing attack. I think it overall changes potentially the offense a little bit. You lose the scrambling ability of Kyler. That can always keep a drive alive, that sort of thing. But I think as passers go, Jacoby Brissett, same bucket, honestly, as Kyler Murray. And who knows? Maybe he has a little bit more magic with Marv. Maybe he can see Marv across the center. Ian, maybe he can throw the ball to him. Going to have Matt Harmon on tomorrow on Talk Data to Me, guys. Ooh. So you can watch that. And one of the guys that we will be discussing is Marvin Harrison Jr. So I'll be sure to ask Harmon what he thinks of Jacoby Brissett if it is him instead of Kyler Murray.
Kyler averaging a career low 6 yards per attempt. Also, I believe just 192 passing yards per game. So yes, Dwayne, I'm sure those whispers will be growing into angry shouts if we do in fact see Marv putting up some big time numbers with Jacoby under center. Otherwise, guys, Panthers running back Chuba Hubbard still not practicing with that calf issue. We're going to be talking about Rico Dowdle and his prospects if Chuba is sidelined here shortly. Bucky Irving still not practicing with a foot and shoulder issue. Also, we'll be talking about Rashad White. Jalen Warren is good to go. He's been practicing in full all week following that bye, where he was able to get healthy. That said, Kenneth Gainwell, Dwayne, he played so well in week 4 that I do think we could see the situation maybe more closely resemble week 1 when it was more of a 50-50 split here. I still prefer Jalen Warren, but man, such a tough matchup against Myles Garrett and that ferocious Browns front seven. Warren's made most of his money in fantasy this year catching the ball anyway, so I'm not saying he's unplayable, but there's a reason why Gainwell and Warren are both kind of in that mid-tier RB3 range. Wouldn't say you should be going out of your way to start either guy this week.
Yeah, I definitely projected them closer based on the big last game that we got from Kenneth Gainwell. The interesting thing will be coming out of the bye, is there any sort of rookie bump for Caleb Johnson, who's really become invisible in the offense? And that's ultimately what's really pushed Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell into spots where we actually can get them into fantasy lineups if we need to. To your point, not really going to be forcing it. Both of them are active in the passing game, so that protects them from bad game scripts. But if they're splitting it in an offense, let's be honest, like it's been fine, but we're not crazy about it. It just hurts the ceiling. I will say we were really getting on board with Mr. Jalen Warren before the injury. In fact, the week that Kenneth Gainwell went nuts, the ceiling in the Xfinity best projections was actually projecting Jalen Warren to be one of the best plays on the slate. He gets scratched from the game, and Kenneth Gainwell stepped in and actually just gave us like the 33 points that the projection model had projected, which was pretty funny. But the reason I bring that up is just to kind of go back to, they're very interchangeable pieces. They both kind of can do all the same things. I mean, I would think that Jalen Warren will be a slightly better ball carrier at his size down inside the 5, but that hasn't really been the case. And honestly, they've given more of the rushing attempts this year to Kenneth Gainwell. Actually, they're really close. And part of that's due to injury. If you look at him in the games they just played, Warren is actually still slightly ahead if we don't count those against him at 67%. But Kenneth Gainwell's had 56% of the carries inside the 5. So they both do everything. And it sometimes comes down to who happens to be the lucky one that's on the lucky person on the field when they actually have the drive that gets down inside the 10-yard line, because they may not interchange the guys once that happens. So yes, both of them would be in running back 3 territory.
Right now with the Fantasy Life consensus ranks, which you can find at fantasylife.com. Warren is RB26, Kenneth Gainwell RB32. Some wide receiver updates: Mike Evans and Chris Godwin not practicing. Godwin dealing with a fibula injury, which is pretty rare to see on the injury report. Back-to-back DNPs to start the week. You guys don't need me to tell you that we will be moving Emeka Ibuka even higher in the ranks if that's possible. Also will be some nice upticks there for Sterling Shepard and Tez Johnson, amongst others. Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy not practicing after being full on Wednesday. I'm wondering if it's more of a rest day, but again, something to keep an eye on with that shoulder and ankle issue that was plaguing him here last Monday night. Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, good to go. Didn't practice on Wednesday due to a wrist issue. He practiced in full on Thursday. Even said to the media that he is feeling good. Just been bugging him for a little bit. Nothing to worry about. We appreciate you, Sun God. Unfortunately, though, Terry McLaurin not practicing with a quad. Also, Darnell Mooney not practicing with a hamstring issue. They both do have a little bit longer to get ready. We have a Monday night doubleheader going on this week, but again, certainly not starting off the week on the right foot. Finally, Jalen Coker with the quad practicing in full. Again, shout out to all of our cokeheads. Darren Waller said he'll have another jump in snaps this week. He is already a top 8 tight end in our Fantasy Life ranks. More on him later. Colson Loveland is limited with a hip issue. And guys, like Dwayne mentioned, we do see post-bye rookie bombs. Dwayne, I know we co-manage several fantasy teams together, and we have seen Colson Loveland on those waiver wires. So if you guys have the bench spot, you're a little bit iffy about tight end, I love the thoughts about trying to get Colson Loveland on that bench if at all possible, Dwayne.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we would like him to be healthy. we want him practicing in full. That would be even better. But yes, he is a first-round pick. And the coaches, you and I have talked about this many times, Ian, it's kind of funny that they can't make this sort of a switch without a bye week. And it's not that they won't, but we do see more of a scenario where we have coming out of the bye, the coaches have a little bit of a chance to kind of tinker with the playbook, tinker with the way they want to think about utilizing players moving forward. And quite often, rookies are the ones that get the bump. So yes, love the call on Colson Loveland. Right now, we're still looking at him as a mid-range tight end 2 to low-end tight end 2, but in 1 week from now, we could feel very differently about that. So it's more about next week than this week.
Yep, and same exact mindset for Bears fellow rookie wide receiver Luther Burden. Finally, Patriots cornerback Christian Gonzalez has been back over these past 2 weeks and really did add a nice, obvious piece to that Patriots defense. Unfortunately, though, after not being listed on the injury report on Wednesday, he did pop back up on Thursday as limited with a hamstring. So again, something to keep an eye on. I still love that Patriots schedule, but it would make them a little bit less of a great DST play if they're not going to have the number one cornerback out there. But enough of the news, guys. Let's get into our running back ranks. First, though, a quick word to our friends over at DraftKings. Big games, big moments, and even bigger upside this week. I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give you a new way to get in on the action. With Pick 6, you ride the upside by making simple predictions. Will players score more or less than the number listed? You put your picks together, and the more you hit, the bigger your payout. And right now, guys, there's an incredible offer. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers play $5 on your first pick set and get $50 back in bonus picks. That's right. All you need to do is play $5 on your first entry, and you'll get $50 in bonus picks instantly. So don't miss your shot to ride the upside. Download DraftKings Pick 6, get on all the action, and sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. Thanks to DraftKings Pick 6 for sponsoring this. Let's make this season one to remember. Running back season, everybody. We got our top 12 here on the board for all of our YouTube and TV listeners. Thank you. And yeah, I'm going to read them off as well. Christian McCaffrey, the King CMC himself, might be an RB3 in terms of his rushing production, but good thing the man catches a million passes. Followed by Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs breaking to the top 5 ahead of the smash spot against the Bengals. Devon Achane, Saquon Barkley can hopefully get going in this revenge game tonight on Thursday Night Football. James Cook, Kyron Williams, Javonte Williams, Ashton Genty, and yes, with Chuba Hubbard projected to be out, Rico Dowdle cracking the top 12. As we move into the RB2 tier, Quinshon Judkins just continues to move right on up the ranks, followed by Breece Hall ahead of that England game on Sunday morning. Reminder, everyone to go ahead and get those lineups set on Saturday night and to wake up early. I know it sucks, but the NFL is doing it to us to avoid another Jaylen Warren situation. Travis Etienne, RB15, followed by Rachaad White, J.K. Dobbins, Derrick Henry sinking all the way down there with Lamar Jackson not expected to play. We'll talk about him more in just a little bit. Bill Krosky-Merritt cracking the top 20, followed by Cam Scatterboot, David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker, Michael Carter, and DeAndre Swift. So, Dwayne, wanted to focus in on 3 running backs here who are rising in the ranks because of injuries, and just wanted to pinpoint how good we exactly feel about them. Starting off with Mr. 200-plus yard rusher himself, Rico Dowdle. Obviously did great last week, looked explosive. And on the season now, man, if you move just the overall, snap and just touch threshold up to 50 carries, he is the number one running back in the NFL in terms of yards after contact per carry. So looking good. And oh my goodness, look what is here on the horizon. Another revenge game, Rico Dowdle against the Cowboys. Dwayne really should be starting lineups of most shapes and sizes. Dwayne froze. We'll see what happens. I think Dwayne's just so overcome with love for Rico Dowdle in this matchup that he just honestly couldn't handle it. Honestly, I can barely handle it too, guys. You look at the Cowboys again, they've improved their run D a little bit just because they've been so bad in past years. But even with that said, 23rd in EPA allowed per rush. They've allowed the 6th most PPR points per game to opposing RBs. And even if you think that their run defense is good and that the Cowboys are going to run away with this game, okay, guess what? Rico Dowdle is playing an every down role, and the Cowboys have allowed the most receiving yards to opposing RB. So again, Rico Dowdle last week, guys, 27 combined carries and targets, 67% snap rate. He is Dwayne's RB12, my RB14. So I know it might feel weird to be slotting in Rico Dowdle ahead of Derrick freaking Henry and some of these bigger names in the ranks, but really is just a situation where we have a player doing good things like Rico Dowdle is this year, getting legit 25 plus opportunities out there. Really is hard to say no to Mr. Dowdle. So feeling good about that. We're also feeling good about another injured player, again, stepping up for the starter, and that is going to be Bucks RB1, guys. Rachaad White facing off against the 49ers. I think our friend Mr. Dwayne is back here, so I'll go ahead and throw to him. But yeah, Dwayne, in addition to Rico Dowdle, we got Rachaad White stepping up, and just like Rico, really should be in far more lineups than not.
Yeah, apparently the leaf blower blew the cable right out of the ground outside, Ian. Not sure what happened there, but lost you guys for a second. But yeah, with Rachaad White, and good stuff on Dowdle. I heard you there at the end. Absolutely love Dowdle this week. But when you look at White, I mean, the big thing with him that we know, he's not like a hyper efficient back, but he is a guy that you can keep on the field for all of the downs. So whether you're going to be inside the 5, great. He's got the size. They're going to give him the ball, let him handle those. They've actually been giving him those over Bucky Irving this season already. And then on pass downs, we know that that is an area that he can specialize in. So no matter what happens with the game script, you're protected with Rachaad White. If you look at what he did last week, he gave you 23.1 fantasy points. That's a hair high from what we've seen from him, Ian. We've got 9 games over the last 2 seasons where he played 55% of the snaps or more. He's averaged 14.4 fantasy points in those games. You can see we've got him projected for 14.6, so almost right on the nose with that number for this weekend. So looking at it, he does have a really good ceiling. I'm going to talk PPR now. Sorry, guys, mixing things up. But I get people say, hey, PPR is the best scoring format. Other people say half. Other people still say standard. So we'll mix it up here a little bit. I know, Ian, your vote is for half, and I would tend to agree with you, sir. But in a PPR format, which is what most people still play in, the Xfinity best ceiling for this man is 33.4 points, guys. His median projection in PPR is 16.2. So I feel really good about Rachaad White this week. I've got him as a mid-range running back too, and you do as well, Ian. So yeah, feeling good about Rachaad White and the Bucs offense.
Consensus top 16 running back. And honestly, Dwayne, it's not that horrible of a matchup against the 49ers. I'm not going to say it's a smash spot when we got Fred Warner patrolling the middle of the field. Okay, that dude is obviously capable of taking over pretty much any game. But since the 49ers have lost Nick Bosa, we've seen their defense actually drop from 9th to 21st in terms of EPA per play. And man, it is still early week injury reports. But guys, 6 different defensive linemen for the 49ers right now are either limited or not practicing at all. So again, very much banged up. And we also, again, got that extra data point that's just truly clarifying that Rachaad White is the clear-cut running back, y'all, as long as Bucky Irving is sidelined on the season now. 49 touches for Rachaad White, just 7 for Sean Tucker, and he has just 1 yard on those opportunities. So hopefully better days ahead for Sean Tucker, but yeah, guys, it's Rachaad White and then pretty much nobody else in Tampa. Not last one, Dwayne. A couple more situations, but this is, I guess, the last running back who benefited last week from it, and that will be Cardinals RB1, Michael Carter. We are both rolling with him as our RB23. So not the same, lineup lock as Rico Dowdle and Rachaad White here. But that said, man, just based on what he was able to do last week with the role and the potential for Amari DiMercado to, let's face it, deservedly get doghoused after that mistake last week, Michael Carter's still someone that, in close-ish flex start sit decisions, I'll probably be rolling with Carter and more of them than not.
Yeah, low-end running back too, like you said, this week. When you look at Carter, the nice thing is he was already at 56% of the snaps last week before the DiMercado injury. So he was really already the lead back. He ended up at 59% for the game. We don't know how much that will hold. Like, is he going to get even more because of what you said with DiMercado? But that's certainly a possibility. You mentioned it's not quite the same spot that we had last week. They're 6.5-point dogs against the Colts. They have one of the lower team totals on the slate at 20.5. But we always want to bet volume, and Xfinity ceiling projections still handle that, right? And what they're looking for is, okay, variance is going to variance. And when you get the opportunities, Ian, good things can still happen. A 28.3 ceiling in PPR points. Last week we had it at 21, which ended up being pretty good. But now that we're projecting him to be in a stronger workload, and we know more about it, we actually project it for 50 to 60% of the work. It does look really good for Carter this week. I would say when you think about his median outcome, yes, more towards that borderline RB2 territory, low end RB2 territory, but he certainly still has ceiling. And you guys know how these things can go. Even in a blowout script, like weird things can happen. The one thing I would say working against him is he did not have the pass down work last week. But if DiMercado is in a lesser role and Jonathan Gannon doesn't get in trouble for it, Ian, for like demoting a guy for doing something, obviously in big trouble for the shove, but he could still demote him. And I think people would be okay with that. And that would not be ruled against in the court of public opinion. I think people would be understanding of that. So if he picks up those pass downs, he picks up even more upside, which I haven't baked into this. I've put his median projection at DiMercado still having the same role he had last week, which I could be wrong on.
Again, consensus ranks, we would be starting guys like Kenneth Walker, Dave Montgomery, Bill Krosky-Merritt ahead of Michael Carter. We do have Carter ahead of guys like DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, Chase Brown, the Steelers running backs, and Tony Pollard, amongst others. Last situation, Dwayne, this time with, again, an active running back injury that we need to talk about is, of course, the Chargers now dealing with life post-Amarian Hampton, at least for the next 4 weeks. Kamani Vidal, Hassan Haskins, maybe even Naeem Miller-Hines, I believe is what he is going by these days. So honestly, Dwayne, started off the week, and I was feeling good about trusting the more explosive pass catching skill set for Kamani Vidal, and maybe that still is the way to go. Spoiler, guys, I have these dudes directly next to each other in the ranks. So again, I'm really trying to make a stance for you, but it is tough at this point. Bringing in Nyheim Hines, though, Dwayne, I thought it was going to be Gus Edwards. I do think Hines is a bit more of a threat to Vidal than Haskins. So what are your thoughts here, and how confident are you in putting either guy in your lineup this week?
I really don't want to be honest. And I really wish that Naheem Miller Hines would have changed his name to Naheem Miller High Life. Like, that would have been even better. But whenever you look at the situation that we have, neither one of these backs has particularly shown us a lot so far in their career. Both of them were good collegiate players in Haskins and Vidal. Honestly, at the NFL level, it is Hines as the ones that has shown us the most. He's shown that he can be a really good receiving back out of the backfield. And it's just enough, like, or normally we wouldn't worry about it, Ian, but because neither one of these players have necessarily asserted themselves, like, the very rational option here for the coaching staff for the Chargers could be, we're just going to rotate all three of these guys because we think all of them do a few things well. We don't think any of them are bell cow players. So we could change our minds after this week. If I had to put my chip on one player, and the projection model is going to reflect this as well in the ceiling, it is Kamani Vidal, because I still think he has the best 3-down skill set, that if they decided to ride one guy, I think it ends up being him. That doesn't mean that's the way that it's going to work out. So if I had to put a chip down, I would say that it would be on Vidal. I will say, though, all of the reports from the beat reporters and so on, if you look at the coach speak stuff, it does lean towards Haskins probably having a little bit larger role. I just think that Kamani Vidal is in a better situation as far as being protected from game script and things like that, which could also, to your point, be worthless because it could just be Naheem Miller High Life jumping in the backfield and taking over pass down. So if I can avoid it, I would rather avoid it. I have all of them. Well, I don't have Hines in my ranks up that high, but I have Haskins and Vidal as low end running back 3 options.
We literally have these guys basically behind any starter, and then also RB2s that we can trust a little bit. Okay. Kareem Hunt, Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson, Kenneth Gainwell. All these dudes are ahead of both Chargers running backs. That said, Dwayne, let's spice it up, man. I got Hassan Haskins ranked higher. You got Kamani Vidal. Let's do a $5 bet here that the winner can, maybe buy a Mike's Hard Lemonade or something. Do you accept?
I accept this.
Wow.
Challenge.
Let's go. Going up against the Miami Dolphins, 5th worst defense in PPR points per game allowed to position. They have allowed the most rushing yards to opposing RBs. Certainly going to make us look stupid depending on which one we pick come next week. That is almost certain. So we did get a big update on the situation, though, Dwayne, from offensive coordinator Greg Roman. Make sure you catch all this. He said they're going to be the lead dogs this week. Just huge news from Greg Roman. Really appreciate it again when coaches really let us behind the scenes. Yeah, man, just again, awesome stuff there from Mr. Roman. As much as those guys are rising up the ranks, though, guys, we do need to talk about some fallers, guys that, again, normally are in our lineups without a second thought. Maybe not this week, though. Starting off with the king himself, Dwayne, King Derrick Henry going up against the Rams. Again, Lamar Jackson has not practiced all week. We are actively projecting him out at this point in our fantasy life ranks. So you're a little bit higher than me. You're RB15. He's my RB20 all the way down there. This is just tough, man. We've seen this Rams defense hold the Eagles, Colts, and 49ers in consecutive weeks under 90 yards. They're actually still the only defense in the NFL that hasn't allowed a single rushing touchdown to an opposing RB. Of course, with Henry, as we know, can just take one and he's running for a 70-yard touchdown. And I feel dumb as freaking crap for even bringing it up. But thoughts on King Henry, Dwayne, and just how much he deserves to be downgraded this week?
I did downgrade him as well. I couldn't go that far just because of the massive ceiling that I think he still carries. And I don't honestly, I didn't want to answer all the questions of why I told someone to sit Derrick Henry and how in the world did I ever talk them into that. So I'm going to leave those conversations for you, Ian. You can handle those online. But to your point, all the things that have derailed Derrick Henry this season are potentially present in this game. Baltimore is a 7.5-point underdog right now to the Rams. They have one of the lowest team totals on the slate at 18.5 points. So these are not your Lamar Jackson Ravens. And then you add on top that they can't stop anyone right now due to all the injuries on their defense. And the Rams are an offense that we like. So there's a reason that odds makers have this game set the way that they do. And if you look at Derrick Henry, Ian, what's interesting is you look at his rushing attempts and utilization report and you've got it toggled on percentages. And you're like, oh, it's fine, man. 64%, 65%, 75%, 62%, 79% of the carries last week. Well, then you turn the toggle on, which is helping you account for game scripts when they have to get away from the run. He had 18 carries in week 1, then 11, then 12, then 8, and he managed to get back to 15 last week, and he still only gave you 9.3 fantasy points. He has a utilization score of 58 on the season because he's not involved in the pass game work, and he's not scoring touchdowns. They're not getting down inside the red zone near as often as they used to. So, yeah, I mean, reality is we're talking about a guy that averages 11.9 fantasy points to this point in the season. So I can't even blame you or argue with you for having him that low. I just know that the single game ceiling is still just astronomical for him versus some of the other guys. So I left him a little bit higher, but I do see why you have him down at running back 20. And again, I can't necessarily argue against it. I think he's right there in that range.
And I don't think he's washed or, father time is finally coming for him or anything like that. He's still averaging 5 yards a pop this year. And it was 5.8 before last week when, again, everyone, including, of course, the Houston Texans, knew when he was in the game that they were going to give him the football. So some running backs I do have ranked ahead of King Henry this week. Bill Krosky-Merritt, again, facing that Bears defense, great matchup. And you just listen to the touches, man. I don't think they're even going to be that wide apart. Also, Cam Scatterby playing on Thursday night. You guys are probably listening on Friday, so I won't dive into that. J.K. Dobbins against the Jets just seems like a great spot. Breece Hall against the Broncos, not as good, but Breece is playing some good ball. Rashad White, Rico Dowdle, ETN, and those guys. To me, Dwayne, that's the thing. Like Bill Krosky-Merritt and then J.K. Dobbins, like normally I would have Henry above them, but man, we're talking about nice favorites here with good matchups. To me, again, Dobbins and Bill Krosky-Merritt, it's crazy, it's weird, but I would start them over Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's where I would draw the line. I wouldn't start either of those players over Derrick Henry. But again, like you bring up really good points. When I look at Bill Krosky-Merritt, as much as I love him, and I have him ranked pretty high as well, he could be a Woody Marks situation where he's back to 30% of the rushing attempts this week. And we just don't know. I know that the Ravens are going to hand the ball to Derrick Henry. I don't know how many times that's going to get to be because if they're getting their wheels blown off, you could honestly, if they're getting destroyed, like Bill Krosky-Merritt on 45% of the rushing attempts could have more than Derrick Henry on 70%. Like that's how these things can work out. So I'm going to keep him above those two names, but I think every other name that you named there, I would have no problem. Like if I was answering a start sit question and someone really wanted to go with the other, because you know how we do, Ian, we're like, hey, these guys are close. And so you can ultimately make a call. Like we let you guys put on your big boy, big girl pants. You can make the call on it. He would be in that tier with those backs. And I wouldn't blame anyone for benching him for those names before you got to J.K. Dobbins and Bill Krosky-Merritt.
The next veteran RB wanted to break down, and I actually just got this information, which is good. Alvin Kamara, Dwayne. Now, he suffered an ankle injury in practice on Wednesday. Nick Underhill reported, though, that it wasn't considered serious. He is day-to-day. He was limited in practice on Thursday. So that tells me he probably should be good to go. If we saw the limited mid-practice injury and then he wasn't practicing, I would be much more concerned. So we'll see what happens. Again, recording this on Thursday afternoon, but tentatively expecting Alvin Kamara to be sitting up against the Patriots. But guess what, man? Like he was going to be in the section even before that became an issue in the first place. The Patriots have been fantastic against the run this year. They are fourth best defense in terms of PPR points per game allowed to position and EPA allowed per rush. And it's just a situation, one of the things that you touched on very nicely in the utilization report, Kendre Miller, man, he's playing great. And guess what? We're seeing his rush shares go up accordingly.
Yeah, so Kendre Miller has been up every single game in his snap share, and Alvin Kamara has gone down. And last week, that culminated with a 28% share of the rushing attempts for the Saints. And it was not only Kendre Miller seeing his highest utilization of the season, it was also the return of Taysom Hill. Because as you say, Ian, when you got a Taysom Hill, you got to do it. You got to get him in there. And he handled 16% of the design rushing attempts. Now, on a positive for Kamara in these last two games when really his role has been at its all-time low, over the last 3 seasons as far as what he's getting in rushing attempts, they have been trying to get him the ball more through the air. His target share has ticked up to 21 and 20% in these last 2 games. So I'm not saying Kamara is going to be a complete zero. Also, guys, you know how these trends have a weird way of reversing themselves. Variance also happens. Kendre Miller fumbles. He might get Blake Corum'd. So not saying that Alvin Kamara is completely unusable, but at the same time, we have no other option other than to downgrade him right now. It's not an offense that we love. You're going in against the Patriots, who are the seventh toughest matchup for running backs. They hold opposing running back rooms 3.9 points under their average for the season. So we've got a matchup that's not ideal. You've got a utilization downtrend, and we've got an offense that we just know is not going to score a ton of points. And those things all add up for Kamara. So yeah, I've got him as a borderline running back too. I think I'm actually running back 25. So when I mean borderline, definitely borderline. Like he's not even in the running back 2 ranks for me this week if you want to be technical and call the cutoff at running back 24.
I think I just barely got him in there as RB24 because it is Alvin Kamara. But man, Dwayne, like I'm looking at the game log right now. Last drive of the game for the Saints. Okay, they're up 12. Like this should be a situation where we are watching Kendra and Kamara hopefully bust a long one because that's when you have defenses needing a stop. They're loading the box. You know, you make that one guy miss at the line. All of a sudden, you can see nothing but green grass in front of you. I mean, on that last drive, Kendra got 2 carries and Taysom Hill got 3. Man, like I'm terrified. I don't think we actually had an inside the 5 rush attempt, but what would you say Kamara's chances are getting it, Dwayne? I don't think they're very high.
Yeah, I don't think they're very high either. I just, man, especially with Taysom Hill back. And
Exactly.
again, game script did drive a little bit of what happened with the rushing attempt share, like what you talked about, the Saints having that rare lead last week. But the problem is, guys, we really want all of those arrows in the quiver for our running back. We want them to play in the scenarios where they're leading. We want them in the game when they're in close games. We want them in the game whenever they're leading. So when you take away any one of those things, and to be fair, like taking away the leading script is probably the best one for the Saints, because how often do we really expect them to be leading in these games? We still don't think they're a very good team. So maybe Kamara can weather it. But at the end of the day, like everything's about a range of outcomes, and it's just one less out that Kamara has. And honestly, we are really dependent on those target shares remaining. And let's be honest, Ian, like the whole Saints attack right now, besides Rashid Shaheed and that one big play last week, they're targeting everyone around the line of scrimmage. Like, so, I mean, Chris Olave is operating in that area. Juwan Johnson's operating in that area. Alvin Kamara's operating in that area. Rashid Shaheed is still doing a lot of his stuff in those areas. So, and then you have Brandon Cooks also operating in the same area. Everyone is like running routes in the same area of the field, like all the time. And so it's in those scenarios, it can be a little tougher to assume like his target shares are going to continue because a lot of people are battling for those same looks.
Alvin Kamara consensus RB25, still ahead of guys like Chase Brown, the Steelers running backs, Tony Pollard. I'm guessing if you have him on your team, you probably don't have too many better options. So we're not saying you need to bench him, but it is wild, Dwayne. I mean, again, Derrick Henry's our consensus RB18. This has got to be like the first time since 2017 that our consensus ranks didn't have Kamara and Henry inside the top 15 or even 12 at that point. What a time to be alive. So good stuff on the rises and fallers. Now let's get into the sicko stars. Dwayne, you do have a criteria for everyone. You break it down in your weekly rankings article, which, by the way, everyone can find over at fantasylife.com for free. Who are you feeling sick enough to start at running back this week?
Well, we already talked about them, and we already said we really don't want to start them. But this is a sicko start. And the criteria for the running backs, you really need to be, well, for all the players, we want you below 50% rostership in the leagues. And for running back, it is the one position where most weeks Ian and I have to cheat, because once you start looking at anyone with any sort of projected volume and how often that they're rostered in ESPN and over on Yahoo and other leagues, like you can't find anybody. But this week we did have one, and I'm going back to Kamani Vidal. And so the reason I like this more than anything isn't so much that I'm hyper confident in Vidal this week, Ian. It's just the fact that if one of these guys had things break their way, which one do I think I would be the most confident or excited about starting as we continue to go along in the season until we get Omari and Hampton back? And it would be Vidal, because I do think that he is the guy that could have the 3-down skill set. And it is showing up in the projection model. So if you look at his Xfinity best ceiling, that's the thing I'm looking for. That's the second criteria I'm really looking for, 21.8 PPR points. And it's because we know that he can work across all 3 downs. So while the median projections are close for Vidal as well as Haskins, Vidal gets the bump because if he gets variance in the passing game and he gets variance in the rush game, he's just getting a larger role than we really think that Haskins, at least at this point with the data we have, than the role that we think Haskins would get. So I will go with Kamani Vidal only in 3% of starting lineups. So most of you are really smart, but some of you play in an absolute sicko league. And in those scenarios, and Ian, we are in some of them where we had to bid on Kamani Vidal, and people went bananas in these leagues we're playing in. Like Kamani Vidal was going for $200 to $400 in a lot of these leagues. So we put 108. Because we were like, okay, it's 4 games and we don't know what's going to happen. So I think we did get him once or twice. So I think you could squeeze him into one of our lineups tonight. We have a couple where running back 2 is pretty gross.
Again, Dwayne feeling confident enough, invite out to risk 5 American doll hairs on him. So we'll see how that works out. For my hardest heater of the week, though, guys, I'm giving some love to one Breece Hall. I'm saying he gives England a show, 100 plus total yards and 2 touchdowns against the Broncos. So again, Dwayne's actually a little bit higher on Breece than I am this week. His RB13, my RB16. But let's face it, wherever you want to rank the dude, he needs to be in your starting lineup, playing better than ever. I know ball security has been a little bit of an issue, and that does matter and everything. But guys, he's got his wheels back. I mean, the explosive plays are back for Breece Hall, and it is great to see. And honestly, better than ever. 19.7% of his runs this year have been called an explosive play. I believe it's 12 plus yards on a run to get an explosive play. That's even better than his rookie year mark, which is already ridiculous at 15%. So fifth in yards per carry overall. He's got top 10 numbers in yards per route run and yards per reception. And I do think it's that facet of the game that could help him against the Broncos, because we know, again, Patrick Surtain and that entire secondary, honestly, it's very tough to get the ball to your wide receivers. I'm sure it'll be a reason why Dwayne talks off Mason Taylor a little bit later, and deservedly so. But let's face it, Breece Hall also a very capable pass catcher. And when you do look at the Broncos, guys, they've allowed the 6th most receiving yards to opposing RBs. We saw the Saquon wheel route touchdown last week. Omarion Hampton had 129 total yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor had 215 total yards and a touchdown. I understand better offenses than what Breece is working with, but Dwayne, just been really good to watch Breece actually get back to looking like his baller self. Maybe we get something going on here where they want to showcase him for a potential trade. If we want to start going down that conspiracy route, I'm feeling good about Breece Hall. And also, the man's just due. I mean, Christian McCaffrey has 91 rushes without a rushing touchdown this year. Bucky Irving has 71. And in third place is Breece Hall at 66. Hardest heater, Breece Hall goes off while a lot of America is still sleeping. You like it, Dwayne?
I do. I love it. Last week with Braylon Allen out, he had his largest rush share of the season at 78%. So we still have Braylon Allen coming in and handling the passing down work, took the 2-minute offense away, which is kind of funny whenever you think about how good Breece Hall is as a wide receiver or as a receiver out of the backfield. But he's still getting targets on the early downs, Ian. 24% targets per route run. That's one of the best running backs in the NFL right now, not named Christian McCaffrey, who's sitting at like 29%, something just crazy, even by Christian McCaffrey standards, because of what's happened with the 49ers offense. Last week, he got 100% of those carries inside the 5-yard line. That was either 1 or 2. I can't remember for sure, but he's got 50% of their carries inside the 5 on the season. And that's even with Braylon Allen competing for those opportunities. So I think the Jets very clearly last week told us they like Braylon Allen, helping to relieve him a little bit in the pass game. But I think if we get opportunities to score touchdowns, he's going to do that. And he's still going to get targets on first and second down, because as you mentioned, outside of Garrett Wilson and Mason Taylor, the Jets have a big fat bag of nothing.
Again, ball security, job security, fix that up, Breece. But yeah, big game coming here against the Broncos. That was our RB breakdown. Now, guys, we're going to talk all things wide receiver. First, though, a quick word to our friends over at Xfinity. Guys, if you call yourself a sports fan, you got to have Xfinity, all right? All the games all in one place so you can become the best at watching sports. We have Sports Zone, which features every pro football game and over 1,000 college games, highlights and alerts all in one place. Also, the multi-view option. What a freaking game changer. Living in the year 2025 is awesome. You can be up in 4 stadiums all at once. There's also the Xfinity Fan View, live scores, odds, and stats all in one place, personalized just to you. And guess what, guys? You can get all in enhanced 4K, Xfinity enhanced 4K, simply stunning views. And yeah, with all this in mind, you can use your voice remote and just say football to find it all. Imagine, again, all your football all in one place. Easy. You can learn more at Xfinity.com. Do note that restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees are extra and subject to change. Wide receivers, we got our top 12 on the board. Of course, Puka Nacua on pace for over 2,000 receiving yards, sitting pretty in the wide receiver 1 spot, followed by a pair of hyphens in Jackson Smith-Njigba and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamar Chase with Joe Flacco under center, getting the respect back from our rankers. He's a wide receiver 4. Emeka Ibuka, wide receiver 5. What a time to be alive. Followed by Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Drake London returning from bye, Roma Dunze on Monday Night Football, Xavier Worthy for now. Again, we'll see what happened with that that DMP today, but hopefully just maintenance, followed by Garrett Wilson in a tough potential shadow matchup with Patrick Surtain, but hey, volume and also a fellow baller himself could win out. And then Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 12, continuing to soak up all sorts of targets with Terry McLaurin's sideline. When we look at the wide receiver 2 tier, Jalen Waddle coming off that huge week 5 performance, getting the respect of our rankers and up there at wide receiver 13, followed by Cortland Sutton set to square off with Sauce Gardner. Tedero McMillan hopefully going to finally find the end zone for the first time this year. More on him shortly. Quentin Johnson, DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown. Hopefully by the time you're hearing this, he had a slump buster performance on Thursday Night Football. And then wide receiver 20 through 24, Michael Pittman, Lad McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., Keenan Allen, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Hopefully going to be a bit more of a Maserati Marv as opposed to, some other just mean nickname. But Dwayne, wanted to go to our wide receiver 18, Stephon Diggs, back-to-back 100-yard performances, and just clearly, I think, being unleashed as the clear-cut number one pass game option in New England right now. 19 targets over the last 2 weeks. No other Patriot has more than 6. So, hey, he's your wide receiver 18. He's my wide receiver 17. Stephon Diggs, man, I know there were a lot of reasonable concerns in the offseason, wondering about the knee injury and the age and the offense and all that, but so far, so freaking good, Dwayne.
Yeah, I mean, look, 40% target shares in each of the last 2 games. He's given you 16.1 and 24.6 PPR points in those contests. So I think most people will understand that they need to have Stephon Diggs in their lineup. They may not expect to see him this high in the ranks, but it's just hard to hold him down. I mean, if we are going to nitpick something, Ian, it's the fact that his route participation rate last week was at 64%. So we still would rather see this guy out there 85% of plays, but it's pretty clear that whenever they know they need to get the job done, they're getting Stephon Diggs on the field. Ian, on 3rd and 4th down over the last 2 games, Drake May has targeted Stephon Diggs 50% of the time. So basically, if it's 3rd or 4th down and they have to get it, they're going to Diggs. The opposing team also knows that. Do you think Buffalo didn't want to stop Stephon Diggs in the revenge game? That, and they've been good against opposing pass offenses. They've given up some ground game stuff, but man, they know that Stephon Diggs is getting the ball and he was still getting it. Drake May hat tip to him as well, made a crazy throw basically right before his knee hit. Who's he going to? Stephon Diggs. So, and the other thing here with the Patriots receiving core is even if the route participation doesn't fully come up this week and it's still more of a gradual ascension for Diggs, there's just no one else, man. We've got Hunter Henry, who's fine, but he's not a target hog. We've got Kayshon Boutte. He's not a high-end target earner. We've got Mac Hollins. I know the no-shoe bit is fun and he's a good blocker and all that, but he's just not a guy they're going to target a lot. So the Patriots are just in a scenario. And Pop Douglas, man, is doing nothing this year. So it's really Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry or bust. And we've got a quarterback in Drake May who's playing great, man. I know he didn't throw the touchdowns last week, but Drake May, when you look at what he's averaging as far as his yards per game, he's in the top 5 in the NFL right now. And it's funny, the betting markets still have not responded to this. They keep throwing his line out there at 228. I haven't looked at it for this week. So you guys may see every week when I drop my bets, Drake May's there. You probably think, oh, Dwayne's being boring. No, the markets just haven't adjusted. So if it's working, we're just going to keep going with it. But Diggs, man, a 28.1 ceiling in the Xfinity best projection model. So that's really good. And he's got a strong median as well at 13.8. So I'm with you, mid-range wide receiver 2 this week. Like you said, I'm 18, you're at 17. That means he should pretty much be in all fantasy lineups, guys, unless you guys play in a 4-teamer. If you're in a 4-teamer, you might not get to Stephon Diggs, but then even you folks playing in the 8-team leagues, Stephon Diggs probably needs to be in your lineup.
You mentioned again defenses want to obviously pinpoint them, but credit to Josh McDaniels for doing a great job moving Diggs around the formation. 36 snaps as offense's left wide receiver, 64 as the right, and 71 in the slot. Again, only so much you can do when you are seeing a number 1 wide receiver like Diggs really attacking from all areas of the field. So Saints matchup, I mean, on paper, it's not the biggest, smash spot in the world. I think some of that comes down to teams generally being able to play with the lead against Spencer Rattler and company. But still, Dwayne, we've seen Jackson Smith and the Jigba go for 96 yards and a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, 89 yards and a tud. Marv, 71 and a touchdown. Even Khalil Shakur had a very nice 69 yards and a score in his own right. So certainly expecting big things for Diggs, and hopefully he can get that pesky touchdown on the board for the first time this season. 34 targets without a receiving touchdown. Only Tedero McMillan, Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr., and Jerry Jeudy have more. Speaking of the Panthers wide receiver 1, hopefully we can have all of these guys break out of their mini touchdown slumps, Dwayne, because T-Mac is getting the best wide receiver matchup of the the week against our Dallas Cowboys. I was looking at some cornerback stats earlier today, Dwayne, and Trayvon Diggs. Look, I'm not saying he's going to be covering T-Mac for the entire game. They have Deron Bland on the other side, haven't made a habit of shadowing guys. But so far this year, Trayvon Diggs in coverage, he's been targeted 10 times. He's given up 8 catches, 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's had 2 penalties, a perfect 158.3 passer rating when targeted. That's not good, Dwayne. And I do think Tedro McMillan has what it takes to take advantage of, again, the best matchup on the slate.
If Trayvon Diggs hears about this, he's going to hit you up in the DMs on Twitter, Ian.
He did that before, I know.
I got that. That's why I bring it up.
GOMD. You guys can figure out what that means at home. But back to you, Dwayne.
Yeah. So Tet McMillan, guys, I know some of you are feeling a little bit frosty on him because he's really performed more as a wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4 this season. You drafted him to be a wide receiver 2 for you in your fantasy league. So I totally get where the angst is coming from. The one thing I want to say here with McMillan, I really dug into him in the utilization report. You can get all the details over there for free at fantasylife.com. You can check it out. But here's the 2 basic things. If you account for Bryce Young's play, which is bad, we're not debating it. Bryce Young has not been a good NFL quarterback. But even after you account for that, Tet McMillan ranks 15th and 16th in catchable targets and catchable air yards. Those are 2 massive components to the utilization score because it's accounting for, are you playing with a bad quarterback? And those numbers still rank as a mid-range wide receiver 2. So Tet's doing his part, Ian. He's earning his targets. He hasn't come up with a big yardage game. He's been more in that 60 to 80 yard range, which has been fine. He's getting the receptions. So really the big thing here is we just need him to break loose on some big plays. And Trayvon Diggs seems like he might be the perfect remedy for that. And if you guys go turn on the All 22 film over on NFL Pro at NFL.com and you just watch Tet McMillan, make sure just to hit on receiving plays, not his targets. He's open and he's cooking guys for deep touchdowns, and Bryce Young is not seeing him. Now, some of these, Bryce is getting pressured, push off the spot. There's a lot of variables, but all we can do is focus on, is the player doing their job? And Tet McMillan is actually even doing a better job than what we're seeing in his underlying data. So I think that is a very positive thing for him. So the 12.7 fantasy point boost to wide receiver rooms is by far the number one. And that's what the Dallas Cowboys give up. Ian, we are talking about white glove service by the Cowboys defense whenever we're talking about what they do for wide receivers. So McMillan, mid-range wide receiver 2 for me this week. I know some folks are like, I can't do it again. Guys, he's got an Xfinity best ceiling of 30.1 fantasy points.
Ooh.
The ceiling is, it's absolutely astronomical. Also has a very good median projection as well.
We have played 5 games, guys, and the Cowboys and Ravens have already given up 10 receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers. No other defense has given up more than 7 so far. So Malik Neighbors was the wide receiver 2 in this matchup. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 3. Wan'Dale freaking Robinson was the wide receiver 5. Luther Burden, Garrett Wilson, Roma Dunze, all top 20 as well.
Wan'Dale did it.
Again, look. I know, man. And he cooked them downfield. None of us knew what was going on. We had a national, crisis over Wan'Dale Robinson catching deep balls in that game. And again, the volume really should be there. And that's the thing we can feel great about. T-Mac, Puka Nacua, and Garrett Wilson, the only wide receivers in the NFL this year with at least 8 targets in every single game. So feeling good about T-Mac. And honestly, if you guys are in these tougher 14-team leagues and you have multiple flex spots, this would be the sort of matchup to lean towards guys like Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker. Again, if you are that desperate. That said, Dwayne, we've been spreading some positive vibes. Now it's time to get a little bit negative here with our followers of the week, starting off with Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams going up against the Chiefs. First of all, Chiefs have done really a great job limiting big passing plays to opposing wide receivers. Top 3 in terms of the lowest EPA allowed per dropback and overall passer rating when wide receivers have been targeted at least 20 yards downfield. And also, man, not only has Jameson Williams already not great role, not grown, it's gotten worse, man. He averaged 6.1 targets per game last year, only 4.2 this season, because that's the problem. It's not like he's all of a sudden not made the most out of his opportunities. The dude's averaging 20 yards per catch, 10.6 yards per target. They're not throwing the ball, Dwayne. And guess what? They're scoring 30 points on anyone. So I'm not blaming Dan Campbell and company for not getting him more involved. But unfortunately, in fantasy land, as much as you want to call him a boom and bust wide receiver 3, he's my wide receiver 37. He's your wide receiver 35. We're almost back to 2 years ago, the boom and bust wide receiver 4 tag.
Yeah, so you mentioned it, the role is even more reduced than what we saw. And to your point, 6 targets per game is fine. Last year, whenever you play for the Lions, you're scoring touchdowns and you're getting all these air yards. Problem this year is target shares of 14, 14, 12, and last week a 4%er. He had a 32%er in week 4. So that's where the boom can come from. And in week 4, guys, had he caught some of those balls, there were some very near misses down the field. He would have had the boom game then. And so I even wrote in the article, Ian, look, let's just get it over with. The sooner we do this to Jameson Williams, the sooner he can just break out and have the big game, and we can just get it over with. And maybe then like the levee breaks and we can have, more games like this. But to your point, the problem is, man, he's not even getting, like last year, I felt like, and I haven't been able to fully break all this down, but last year he would get schemed up more in motion. They put him in motion, then they would drag him across in these clear out routes, where someone else would run the vertical off, get him the ball, let him run after the catch. And we're just seeing Amon-Ra St. Brown get more of that stuff so far this year. And maybe that's fluky, but he's really stuck more in this vertical kind of role. And if that's all that you're going to get to be, even if you're a really good player, and we've heard Matt Harmon talk about this in the past, really good players, if they're stuck in that role where they're running off coverage all the time, like good quarterbacks like Jared Goff that have other options to go to, Ian, they're not going to force those plays. When they're like, man, I know I can hit a Monra right here for 11 yards. They're going to take that. Oh, Sam Laporta is open for 8 yards on first down. I'm going to take that. It's first down. I can hit Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield for 7. I'm going to take that. And then the final thing that's kind of like I don't know that it's the straw that's breaking the camel's back, because there's a lot going wrong here right now for JMO. But Isaac Tesla, seemingly every game, gets 1 or 2 targets down the sideline and an ISO coverage where he gets a chance to come up with a touchdown. And so those plays are not going to Jameson Williams anymore. So when you add it all up, there's just a lot of mouths to feed. It is an offense that can mobilize JMO to a massive score at any point in time. We know that. But some of you guys, like maybe you drafted, Romo Dunze and some of these other players ahead of him, or behind him, but now you're getting to start them ahead of him. So there's a lot of wide receivers that we took after JMO that are outperforming him by a very large margin. So in those scenarios, you should have no problem benching him. You've probably already figured that out for yourself. I will say, if you get to a really close scenario, Ian, where you're trying to decide with people, you can go check out the Fantasy Life Start Sit tool, and you can put in there if you're an underdog, or if it's a toss-up matchup, or if you are a favorite based on what the projections look like for the platform that you're playing on. And then you might decide that there's some situations where, you know what, I need the upside of JMO here, so I'm going to go ahead and swing for the fences on him over maybe, someone that is more of a good medium projection, but doesn't carry the same ceiling as JMO. So, but for the most part, man, if I can get him on the bench, I'm trying to. And we have some teams, dude, that you and I have where we're playing in skank leagues. There's nothing available. And we have to start 2 wide receivers and 2 flex. They're full PPR. And I looked, we have JMO on the bench in one of those. And now we have a good receiver room on that team, but it is possible even in deeper leagues that you might be benching JMO.
As you kind of alluded to, the easiest way how to get your underperforming fantasy player going is to bench them. So hopefully by us doing that, Dwain, everyone else starting JMO can benefit from that. But yeah, man, again, just comes down to making these tough decisions. We are going to be siding with guys like T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Jawan Jennings if he plays, even Wan'Dale Robinson playing tonight. It's irrelevant, but those guys are ranked ahead of JMO in our consensus ranks. We do have guys like Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakur, Romeo Dobbs, Cooper Kupp, amongst others, just behind them. So again, you might not have better options. We got a couple teams on bye, Texas and Vikings this week. I get it, but certainly has been a little bit disappointing for JMO from the volume. Hopefully that catches up at some point, but again, not feeling great about it here ahead of Sunday night. So with that said, Dwain, it's time to get bold. It's time to go hard or go home, presented by Mike's Hard Lemonade. Are you going to go hard in your leagues and start these guys, or will you go home? This is Go Hard or Go Home, fueled by the bold flavors of Mike's Hard Lemonade, the official drink of those who go hard for their league. And accordingly, Dwain, let's get sick. Who is your sicko wide receiver start of week 6?
This is absolutely sick. Kamani Vidal was sick. This is just as sick. This could be sicker. This is Isaiah Bond for the Browns, an offense that we're not crazy about, that has a crowded wide receiver room. They got 2 tight ends they like. They got 17 running backs they want to try to get the ball to, Ian. Rostered in 5% of Yahoo leagues. So absolute sicko call, only in 1% of starting lineups as of this morning when I last checked again. But we've got Cedric Tillman out and Isaiah Bond. Guys, if you don't remember him in the NFL draft, he was thought to potentially be a round 2 to 4 pick. This is a guy that really was honestly the better wide receiver on the Longhorns for the better part of last season in their championship run, when then they got their butts kicked by Ian's team. Ohio State Buckeyes took care of business, but it was really Bond, not Matthew Golden, that a lot of scouts really liked. He had the off the field issues. Obviously, that became a problem for where he, for the way people thought about him as far as his draft stock goes. But man, in these games where he's been out there, Ian, playing for Tillman, he's had target shares of 19 and 21%. The last two games. They're moving him all around the formation. This guy has incredible speed. And here's the big thing for him. The Steelers play the third most man coverage in the NFL right now, 38% of the time. And you're thinking, well, wow, that's still a lot of zone. Yeah, you're right. And that's why we don't talk about some of these matchup stats all the time with our data, because a lot of it just comes down to variance. But we do look at the outlier cases, and the Steelers fit in that bucket. So he's going to get plenty of man coverage looks. He leads the team since becoming a starter in targets per route run against man at 26%. So if the Browns are going to somehow come up with a big play this weekend, I like it to be Isaiah Bond breaking off a long touchdown. Ian, he's got an Xfinity best ceiling of 19.3 fantasy points. So not up there with some of the other guys that we've talked about that have more outs, but like, we would definitely take that. And his median's not bad, man. 8.7 points. I know it's not great, but some of you guys are playing in really deep leagues. If you play if you're looking at the sicko calls, you play in a skank league. And so you're looking for something. And so I would say Bond is a boom bust wide receiver 5 this week. Not quite up to JMO standards. He's definitely below JMO, but this is a guy. And again, the last thing on this is it's a young player that we're buying into. And if somehow he does have his breakout game, even if you don't want to hang on to him, people are more likely to give you something for a young player that had a breakout game. So say you just want to flip him after this game, he goes off for 22 fantasy points, and you still think that the Browns stink and you're not that confident in their offense the rest of the way. I think Ian and I could feel you on that, but it's a player that you could actually move, or you decide to keep him, up to you. But I like focusing on these younger players where it makes sense for the sicko calls.
I do think he has a similar kind of skill set and vibe to guys like Jameson Williams and Rashid Shaheed, who again have done it and they're in better offenses than what he's working with Dylan Gabriel and company right now. But 25% of Bond's targets this year have been thrown at least 20 yards downfield. And this spot, Dwayne, doesn't look like Jalen Ramsey's going to be playing. He's still not practicing with that hamstring injury. And even if Ramsey maybe isn't his prime self at this point, he still is rated as a top 10 cornerback in coverage by our friends over there at PFF. So I like this call. It is a terminal sicko start here, Dwayne. So kudos for you. Hope we do see that one come to fruition. For my Hartitz heater, I will not be going all the way down into the wide receiver 5 depths, but I am taking someone who maybe you guys are debating in a close start-sit decision. Give me Brian Thomas Jr., finally breaking out and partying like it's the second half of 2024 again. 135 yards, 7 catches, and a touchdown against a banged-up Seahawks secondary, guys. This is the thing here. Devon Witherspoon continues to miss practice with that knee injury, and also Rico Woolen with a concussion has been limited. Honestly, maybe Rico Woolen can suit up. I'd almost feel better about it. He's PFF's 7th worst-graded cornerback this year, and I'm not worried about him slowing down BTJ when he is doing his thing. I wonder, Dwayne, if that light bulb moment came on that final drive. Trevor Lawrence drove him down the field when BTJ, fantastic release, got a step. And T-Law threw maybe one of the best throws we've seen of his career, hitting that honey hole shot down the sideline, helping put his team in position to win. So I know everything was gross to start the season. There were drops, there were miscommunication. There was BTJ having alligator arms over the middle. It was bad. Weeks 1 through 3, guys, he only caught 28% of his targets for 4.6 yards per target. That is miserable, like league low, like historically low numbers. These last 2 weeks, though, started to look a bit more like BTJ, a very nice 69% catch rate, and also 9.9 yards per target, Dwayne. So Seahawks, as we discussed on our Wednesday show, have been one of these emerging pass funnel defenses. Again, I think more so due to injuries than anything, but yeah, they're still banged up. He's my wide receiver 21. He's your wide receiver 22, Dwayne. BTJ, ladder bets, can I interest you in that?
Yeah, 38% of the team's air yard share, guys. So anybody that has that kind of number has an opportunity to either be Calvin Ridley from last year and never come through for us, Ian, and we keep talking about it, or they get back on track, which is totally in the range of outcomes here for Brian Thomas Jr. I like what you highlighted in the matchup concerns for the Seahawks on the other side of the ball. And I do hope that honey hole moment was the lights on moment for Mr. Trevor Lawrence. Again, great throw by him on that play. He did make a great throw. 2 great throws in the game. The rest of them I can't say as much for. But with BTJ also averaging 7.4 targets per game. So we're just leaning into the fact that they're still trying to pepper this dude. Kind of a similar argument, honestly, to Tet McMillan. not quite on the same level as far as what he's done this year. But when you look at what we already saw him do last year and the fact that they are at least continuing to throw him the football, there's always going to be a big opportunity for a boom scenario for Brian Thomas Jr. Unlike JMO, he's actually still part of the offense. Like, he's getting his targets. It's just, and some of them, man, have been just slight miscommunications between him and T-Law. And so you're hoping new offense, still early in the season, you can iron those kinks out.
And I will admit, it troubles me that we're in year 5 or 6 of Trevor Lawrence at this point. It seems like every single year we're watching him be off by that much with whoever his wide receiver one is. But again, it was a nice performance, and I do ultimately trust BTJ's talent to win the day here. But guys, that is going to wrap up this week's Go Hard or Go Home, brought to you by Mike's Hard Lemonade, because playing it safe is how you end up watching the playoffs from the couch. Time for some quarterback talk here on the Fantasy Life Show. We got our top 12 on the board right now. Josh Allen sitting pretty as the QB1, Jalen Hurts QB2, followed by Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes, and a pair of second-year signal caller stud quarterbacks, at least in fantasy. Caleb Williams QB5, Drake May QB6, followed by Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, although we could have some weather concerns. We'll touch on those here in a little bit. Also, Jordan Love and Daniel Jones rounding out the top 12. So, Dwayne, let's go ahead and focus on Dak Prescott here starting off. He's your QB8. He's my QB7. Facing a Panthers defense that, started off the year actually with some pretty good numbers in the secondary. They got J.C. Horn. They got some guys. They've done a generally good job against wide receivers. But, man, these last 2 weeks, I think we've kind of seen who this defense really is. Drake May had 203 yards and 2 touchdowns on 14 of 17 passing. I know you had us over on that. And literally, he threw 17 passes and still almost got it. So I think that tells us how good of a play that still was. Tua last week, 256 yards and 3 touchdowns on 27 of 39 passing. And look, I'm not even necessarily trying to hate on the secondary. The problem, Dwayne, is that they cannot get after the quarterback. Dead last this season in pressure rate and sacks, which honestly is probably the biggest problem against the Cowboys when you have that banged up offensive line. So credit to them and Brian Schottenheimer and everyone, because I do think the Cowboys, despite all those offensive line injuries, have still held up pretty well up front. But man, Dwayne, I saw you tweeting about it last week. Like, Dak Prescott right now playing some of the best ball of his career, and accordingly, consensus top 8 quarterback for us here at Fantasy Life.
Yeah, I mostly wrote this just so my family can yell at me that Dak Prescott still sucks. But yeah, he's playing really good, Ian. Probably the best ball of his career, in my opinion. Over a 2-game sample, but 271 yards per game this season. That actually ranks the number 2 in the NFL, behind Stafford, who we'll talk about here in a second, who ranks number 1. And then you also have him throwing 2 touchdowns per game. So that's tied for 4th best in the NFL. And I didn't think the Panthers defense was good enough to honestly call out in the column. I'm essentially looking for outliers when it comes to defenses and whenever it comes to the things they can do to an offense, whether it's really bad and help them or really good and hold them down. And the Panthers are really neither of those things. They kind of sit in the middle. So I just think the Cowboys are going to do their thing this weekend. It's just so impressive that Dak's doing this in the 2 games without CeeDee Lamb. And you got these other targets and players stepping up, and Dak helped elevating players like Ryan Flournoy. So Xfinity best ceiling of 36.2 fantasy points, a median projection. Sorry, that's actually in our real-time sports leagues. So sorry, mix that one up there. But yeah, he's got a 28.6 fantasy ceiling. So yes, absolutely love Dak this weekend.
A man that both Dwayne and I have only one spot behind Dak in the rankings is Rams QB1 Matthew Stafford. Guys, 375 yards and 3 touchdowns, then 389 yards and 3 touchdowns over these last 2 weeks against the Colts and 49ers. He is playing fantastic. And meanwhile, this Ravens defense is a mix of very bad and also hellaciously banged up, injuries all over the place. So it does sound like they have a chance to get some of these defensive starters back. But man, just the way that we see Stafford, Puka, and Devontae Adams cooking, I am not too worried. Heck, even against a good version of this Ravens defense back in 2023, we saw Stafford go off. I still cannot figure out how Puka Nacua made that diving catch, but no gloves on nonetheless in the rain. And I did want to bring that up because there could be some weather issues here, Dwayne. It is early again on Thursday. And, I always again refer everyone to Kevin Roth over at rotogrinders.com. They have a free NFL weather page. I always check it out Sunday morning before making close start sit decisions. But per Kevin, this is a matchup that again could have the highest winds and best chance for rain. He says says we can't trust the models this far out. So again, grain of salt. But he says right now it could be steady and eventually soaking light to moderate rain and 15-mile-per-hour winds with gusts up to 25 and 30 miles per hour. So as we do every Sunday morning, myself and the great Chris Allen, who happens to be the best weather mind in all of fantasy football, will be talking through everything at 10 a.m. Eastern right here on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel. So we'll put that aside for right now, Dwayne, and worry about it closer to game time, because otherwise, Matthew Stafford and this entire passing game and offense for that matter really are in the nut spot this week.
Yeah, dude, nothing to add. You hit it all. I mean, he's just crushing. He's crushing on all cylinders. And Davante Adams, the addition of Davante Adams to this offense is taking it to another level. And we saw it all in the first clip whenever they were showing when they brought Davante Adams on board. And Stafford was watching it in the meeting with Sean McVay as he was showing what they were going to do for the offense. And all of those things have come true. So Davante Adams just really turning Stafford into a guy that can throw for 3 and 4 touchdowns in a game. We didn't have that last year. And so hat tip to Davante Adams, just unlocking this offense to new levels.
Again, guys, someone that Dwayne shouted out in our utilization report show was Davante Adams, and the opportunity to maybe buy him at a wide receiver 2 price tag, because we actually do expect wide receiver 1 production the rest of the way. Some of those trades, again, that actively happen on Yahoo Sports that both Dwayne and I would do in a second. Davante Adams for A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Devontae Smith, Ricky Pearsall, Brian Thomas Jr. straight up. Give us Davante Adams, and we think he'll take his first step towards fulfilling that here this Sunday. That said, Dwayne, we do have a faller. It is the other Los Angeles quarterback, Justin Herbert, going up against the Dolphins secondary that, no, is not very good at all. We're not worried about the secondary. That said, one quarterback can only deal with so many offensive line injuries, and we really have seen that impact here over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's the issue. I don't know that Herbert is in a situation where he can actually tap into the upside potential of facing the Dolphins in the pass game. And we have seen Nick Chubb, Jalen Phillips, not Nick Chubb, Bradley Chubb. Nick Chubb probably could rush the passer, guys. He'd be like Elvis Dumerville out there, the short guy getting around the corner. But whenever you look at the pressure that the Dolphins, they have a couple guys that can put some pressure. Actually, they have more than that. They have Ian's favorite, Chop Robinson, also over there. So when you look at the offensive line issues, obviously Rashawn Slater was lost in the preseason, out for the season, and that's one of the best tackles in football. Then you have the high ankle sprain to Joe Alt. He's not going to play this weekend. Mekhi Becton with a hand injury is questionable. He left the game last week. And Trey Pipkins, the backup tackle that has to fill in for Joe Alt or Rashawn Slater, he's also questionable with an ankle injury, guys. So this is as bad as it gets. And you hear Friedman talk about the cluster injuries and what it does to the betting model. It really is one of the edges that we like to lean into over here at Fantasy Life. And it's just an issue. And you've seen it in the yards per attempt, Ian. Herbert, week 1, 9.4, week 2, 9.0, week 3, 4, and 5, where these injuries started to pile up, 6.4, 5.0, and 5.7. And these are not against great defenses. The freaking Giants held this man to 203 yards. Last week, the Commanders, who can be cooked by pretty much anybody, 166 passing yards. So I think the play calling is also not doing them a lot of favors at this point. We love the pass-heavy offense when the offensive line was healthy, Ian, because you've got 3 good weapons in the passing game. Seems like it made a lot of sense. But now with defenders just pinning their ears back and coming after the quarterback, I actually picked up the Miami Dolphins defense in a couple spots in some where there wasn't like a Patriots or someone to pick up. This is just, you're essentially playing with a high school offensive line compared to what NFL defenders are used to facing. And that's not on Herbert. That's just, that's the hand he's been dealt. So I moved him down outside the top 12. I think you did as well. Some of our other rankers, I think we're going to have to question their ball knowledge, because they still have Herbert in the top 10. And it's not that we don't like him. We like his weapons, but I think there's plenty of quarterbacks to start over Justin Herbert this weekend.
Both of us do, in fact, have him ranked as the QB 13. Players we do have ahead: Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Jordan Love, Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield, amongst others. So, again, you mentioned it, Rashawn Slater out all year, but since they have lost Joe Alt, Dwayne, we've actually seen the average time to pressure, cool things we can measure in a year in 2025. Weeks 1 through 3, it was at 2.52 seconds. These last 2 weeks, 2.31, man. That is a pretty significant drop off. And again, as you mentioned, could even be some more injuries. So I will say with the Dolphins, too, with Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, Matthew Judon, they weren't getting home very often the first couple of weeks, but they have started to turn it on. 5th best pressure rate in the NFL over these past 3 weeks. So again, just a bad combo. Maybe Justin Herbert just makes some incredible Justin Herbert plays, and we also know he's liable to take off and pick up some rushing yards as well. So it's QB 13. Let's not get too crazy about shooting him down the ranks. But again, he was a guy where we were confidently firing him up inside the top 6 a couple of weeks ago. Not so fast, my friend, today. Dwayne, before we get to our sicko start, though, I want to invite everyone, if they do want to see these full ranks, you can get a free Fantasy Life Plus subscription. All you have to do is go to fantasylife.com/Comet, download the Comet browser powered by Perplexity, and you will get, again, a full year of Fantasy Life Plus for free. So again, we will have this in the description, but yeah, check it out. It's a cool Comet browser by Perplexity. I do think it'll help you out. Cool AI stuff going on there. But yeah, Fantasy Life Plus for free. How could you turn down that deal? Dwayne, sicko quarterback start. You've had some success with these this year, man. So let's keep the good times rolling with maybe your favorite quarterback in the league. Who you got?
I'm going back to Trevor Lawrence. I've already used him one time as a sicko call. What could go wrong, Ian? But I like it. You gave me confidence. You went with Brian Thomas Jr. So he's only rostered in 44% of Yahoo leagues and 17% of starting lineups as of this morning. And let's get one thing straight here, guys. Trevor Lawrence is not playing well. The Jaguars offense is still not in sync. Everything appears way too hard. Even the great throw he made into the honey hole, it's like, okay, God, like, do you have to do that every time to actually make the offense like work? Okay, that'd be nice, but those are sick throws. Completion rate, 60%. That's 27 out of 30 quarterbacks with at least 100 attempts, Ian. Yards per attempt, 6.3. That ranks 23rd. Touchdowns per attempt, barf, 3.6%. The league average is 4.2. That's 25th in the NFL. So not saying that Trevor Lawrence is this guy that you need to ram up the ranks, guys, and start him over guys you normally would. This is, just remember, a sicko call. So you need a sicko scenario to be using him. The big thing, though, Ian, that we saw come back last week that's actually been part of Trevor Lawrence's game for his whole career, and it's been what has kept his fantasy points afloat. He was scrambling again. Obviously, the greatest one of the game was after falling down, getting his foot stepped on, and he even said after the game, I was going to throw it away, but there was nobody there. Well, we know not why no one was there, because Chris Jones just took the play off, and he ran it in for a touchdown at the end of the game. Sorry to my wife, Amanda, a massive Chiefs fan. That was heartbreaking for her, but man, 54 rushing yards last weekend, 2 touchdowns, Ian. The guy, this is the big thing, he's averaged 0.28 rushing touchdowns per game over the last 3 seasons. So basically every third game, he's getting a rushing touchdown. That may not seem like a lot to you guys. There are not very many quarterbacks that sit in that range. That's in the range of Justin Fields. That's in the range of Jaden Daniels. The guys that are higher are Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. So that's pretty good. So the projected ceiling right now for him, the Xfinity model, which is the other thing I look for sicko calls, 28.1. That's 12th best on the weekend. His floor is 18th. So that shows you the wide range of outcomes we're talking about on Trevor Lawrence. His floor is 9.3. Not good. It could go bad, but there is a ceiling play here for Trevor Lawrence.
You know what is crazy, man? He was literally like an inch away from having a 3rd rushing touchdown, trying to do his best Drew Brees impression at the goal line. Bro, he did it on like week 18 against the Titans a couple years ago, fumbled and like didn't get in the end zone, and they needed to win that game to make the playoffs type of situation. I don't think I've seen him do it since. So tried to pull it out and again, didn't work out. So I really don't think we'll see it anytime soon. Again, athletic enough though to make it happen from further out. So kudos to T-Law for that. For my Hartitz heater, I'm going up the ranks here a little bit. If you want to use the word coward, I wouldn't, but I would understand. Jordan Love steals the show in Cincinnati. I think I told our producer 275 yards, but that's soft. Give me 300 yards and not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 touchdowns for honestly someone, Dwayne, who I think again with a nice little stretch here will be firmly in the MVP conversation if he's not already. I know that Browns game was very unfortunate and he had that ugly interception at the end, did not put his best foot forward, but even including that, man, EPA per dropback, PFF pass grade, yards per attempt, passer rating, whatever nerdy advanced stat you want to bring up, this dude's been top 5 in the NFL this year. Best, combined explosive pass play rate, which is one of the things I look at in my weekly matchups column, which you can find live for free at fantasylife.com. And I do think this banged up offensive line is going to be, I guess, still not good enough to really get Josh Jacobs in the run game going, perhaps forcing Jordan Love to throw more, and we know they can take advantage of that Bengals secondary. So I know it's annoying trying to figure out what Packers wide receiver is going to boom during any given week. I actually think the answer might be Tucker Kraft this week against the Bengals' league worst defense and fantasy points per game allowed to tight ends. But again, the man orchestrating it all, making it happen, Mr. Jordan Love. Hopefully Joe Flacco's up in the task to turn this one into a fantasy-friendly shootout. So good stuff on quarterbacks, everyone. Let's close things out in the fourth quarter with a look at tight ends. Sitting atop of the board, we got Trey McBride, Mr. Tight End 1, followed by the actual Tight End 1 in fantasy football these days, Jake ASAP Ferguson, Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, Sam Laporta rounding out the top 5, followed by Dalton Kincaid, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry, Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts, Dave Njoku, and Mason Taylor. Dwayne, if we had to go ahead and do our best Meet the Parents impression and have a circle of trust here, is it after Tucker Kraft in terms of guys you really trust? Again, we have them ranked the way we do, but for me, it probably is those top 4 and then everyone else.
Yeah, I think Sam Laporta is right there in it. You don't know for sure where it's going to go for the Lions, but like he's doing basically the same thing every week. It's just like, does he score the touchdown? But I am fine, yes, drawing the line after 4. Then I think Laporta's in a mini tier to himself. Dalton Kincaid living off some touchdowns, which, might continue. They're targeting him more down the field, so his role has changed a little bit. But yeah, I would agree. Circle of trust, top 4 guys. Tucker Kraft is an absolute beast.
With that in mind, we'll try to talk up some of the guys we're feeling less sure about, starting off with that tight end 7, Darren Waller, facing off against Derwin James and the Chargers, a defense that has been good against tight ends, 5th best in terms of PPR points per game allowed to the position. That said, Dwayne, just based on everything we've seen over these last 2 weeks, Darren Waller is looking a lot like the Dolphins' number 2 pass game option moving forward. Maybe it's going to be Devon Achane, like I totally get that, but between Waddle, Achane, and Waller, man, as long as these 3 keep playing, I'm starting to like the Dolphins' offense more than I ever thought was possible in the year 2025.
Well, and we've got a consolidated offense around those 3 players, and we know that Tua is a capable player. We know that Mike McDaniel is a capable schemer. So, there's a lot of things that can come together. I know that the Dolphins have been more of a dumpster fire overall if you're just looking at, their record from a win perspective. But the offense has played better here recently. And then we've got Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who's not really a high-end target earner, having to play more time. Malik Washington looking more like a gadget player. And that's just left this role for Darren Waller, who is a proven veteran that's had big fantasy seasons before. I know a lot of folks wanted to write him off because he's an older guy. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's been rapping, not playing football. So I can totally understand that. But man, we're 2 games in and it's 18.3 fantasy points per game with a 24% targets per route run. Last week, he jumped up his route participation to 68%. Would not be surprised at all, Ian, to see that number 75, 80% this week, especially if they get into any sort of a trailing scenario. They are playing the Chargers. I expect this game to be close. Chargers have been pretty good against the pass, period, and good against tight ends, like you mentioned. But man, as I was working my way through all these other guys, I'm like, Waller is their main red zone threat. He's the main guy that Tua is going to be looking for once they're down inside the 10. So yeah, I've got Waller as tight end 8 and an Xfinity best ceiling projection of 23.5 fantasy points in a PPR league.
Already got 3 end zone targets this season. That's already tied for 4th at the position. And then just over these last 2 weeks, one of only 5 tight ends, even in a part-time role with 100+ air yards. So he's getting fantasy-friendly downfield opportunities, also being thrown to in the red zone. And as Dwayne said, this Dolphins offense does have glimpses of goodness, usually when Tua can play on schedule inside Mike McDaniel's scheme, guys. When Tua gets the ball out in under 2.5 seconds, he is the 8th ranked quarterback in EPA per dropback. When he holds it for more than 3, he drops all the way down to 25th. So again, something the Chargers know, I'm sure, not a layup matchup, but certainly feeling good about Darren Waller regardless. Next one, Dwayne, a little bit more of a honestly sicko start here, but did want to shout it out for anyone unfortunately dealing with this Brock Bowers knee issue. It's that Michael Mayer is back. Obviously missed the last few weeks with a concussion, but man, someone who I was checking out your rookie supermodel tight end scores as the 7th best mark, I believe, in its existence, which goes back to about 2018. So Michael Mayer, very highly touted prospect. We've seen him make some plays with opportunities, and he should have quite a few of them this Sunday.
Yeah, you just hit it. Brock Bowers did not practice again today, and hopefully the coaching staff will do the right thing and step in as the parents and say, Brock, we're gonna have you rest another week. And so, yes, this is more along the lines of a sicko call than a guy that we're shooting up into the ranks. But if you guys are hurting, Michael Mayer is a guy in deeper leagues, and I saw him available on the waiver wire in tight end premium leagues as I was working through the waivers last night on some teams. So especially for you guys playing over in those streets, Michael Mayer could be an option if you are in need at tight end.
Consensus tight end 20. We do have them ahead of guys like Evan Ingram, Jonnu Smith, AJ Bonner, and Cade Otton. So again, if you are feeling sick, feel free to throw your hands in the Mayer. Speaking of a faller, though, Dwayne, we do have the Saints tight end Juwan Johnson. Maybe the clock struck midnight here on his fairy tale start to the year. Patriots have been the league's 3rd worst defense against tight ends, so I don't want to completely shut the book on them. But just the more I look at him in the ranks, man, the more I just keep on moving them down. So talk about Juwan Johnson and kind of, I guess, the lack of target volume we've seen from him in recent weeks.
Look, he's still playing enough. right now. His route participation has been around 80%, but he's also playing with an injury. He's been playing hurt essentially for the last 3 games. The last 2 games playing with the injury. I believe it was 3 games ago when he got hurt during the game. So that could definitely be holding him back a little bit here. But now we get Taysom Hill back, Ian. And Taysom Hill didn't really play tight end last week. He mostly played running back and quarterback. We could see them start to sprinkle him in. So any kind of potential like risk that comes along with Juwan Johnson as far as running less routes, that just hurts him because he's not like this elite target earner. We didn't think that like he would be like a 30% targets per route run player all year, but we thought, hey, at 90%, if you're 20%, and we think he's capable of doing that as far as targets per route run at 20%, like he probably is fine. And he could still be a top 12 tight end the rest of the way. He's just much more fragile now because you're dealing with the injury and you're dealing with the fact that the Saints look like they're actively changing up their offense a little bit by getting Kendre Miller more involved, getting Taysom Hill more involved, changing the way they're, and if they're going to throw the ball to Alvin Kamara, and that's the way they want to get him his touches so that they can hand the ball off to Kendre Miller, that also hurts Juwan Johnson. He's now having to battle Alvin Kamara for targets that he was not battling him for over the first 3 games.
Again, nice. We got a few starts in there, and it was a wild time to be allowed to have Juwan Johnson ranked inside the top 6. Not so much this week. He is very much moving down the ranks. And Dwayne, you would certainly start your sicko start ahead of Juwan Johnson. Going back to back here again, talk about Jets tight end 1, and honestly, their number 2 pass game option, Mason Taylor, going up against the Broncos.
Yeah, I would say I don't make the rules, but I do make the rules. And the rule is you got to be rostered under 50%, and Mason Taylor still is. So why not go back to him, Ian? I don't need to make life hard on myself or for you guys if we don't have to. And again, we're talking about a player that was the number 42 pick in the draft. This is an ascending player. If he goes off again this week, you're going to be so happy to have him on your roster. If he doesn't and you want to cut him, great. But this is the best kind of sicko call is a rookie like Mason Taylor. Ian, over these last 2 games, as he's gotten healthy. Remember, high ankle sprain that happened to him back in August. Then he hurt it again in week 1. So slowly ramp back up. Weeks 4 and 5, he's given you 11.5 and 17.7 fantasy points over those games. He's got a 25% target share over the last 2 games. He's sitting at 18% despite the early games holding him down when he wasn't completely healthy, Ian. That's still 10th in the NFL right now as far as target share for tight end. So yes, absolutely love him. You talked about it earlier. Patrick Surtain is almost certainly going to be trying to lock down Garrett Wilson this weekend. Oh, great. We'll just go to the backside and Riley Moss to Josh Reynolds. Oh, Alan Lazard's out. Maybe Arian Smith. I don't know. Tyler Johnson. Who are these guys? It says this guy here is dead. All right. So if we're looking at it, it's just going to get funneled inside, man. And I think Taylor is going to give them. And the Broncos have been good against tight ends too, guys. And they play a lot of man covers. The one caveat I would say is the gear we haven't seen yet from Mason Taylor is earning targets against man coverage. The Broncos play the 4th most in the NFL. So they could clamp him. But, man, I'm taking my chances with Surtain clamping, just being the better player and giving the young guy the chance to go out there and actually try to beat some linebackers and safeties, which while I like them, they're not to the Surtain level. So yeah, I've got him as a low end tight end 1 this week against Denver. He's got an Xfinity best ceiling of 20.8 points in a PPR league with a median of 10 fantasy points.
Like you said, they have been good against tight ends, but still, Tyler Warren had 79 yards. Oronde Gadsden nearly had 10 fantasy points. Dallas Goedert found the end zone last week. Probably could have gotten that DPI call down the stretch as well. Don't think, again, it's a stay away spot necessarily for Mason Taylor. Like that call, Mr. Dwayne. I am getting sicker than you, though, for my Hartitz heater. Give me another great game from Jake Tunges, staying hot, gains 50 yards, Dwayne, and finds his way into the end zone again. Somehow the tight end 8 in PPR points this year. Maybe like the most surprising random top 10 player in fantasy at any position. In fact, I think I can confidently say he has to be that, because if you would have asked me who this man was a month ago, Dwayne, I don't think I would have had a good answer for you. But with the state of his 49ers offense and with Kyle Shanahan and Mac Jones refusing to stop putting up passing yards, by the way, 49ers number 1 in the NFL in passing yards. What kind of simulation are we living in, Dwayne? 3, 5, 3, 5, and 11 targets on the season. Sometimes I just sit alone in my room at night and cry thinking about how many freaking yards George Kittle would have right now if he was still healthy. Dwayne, 4 catches for 25 yards and 1 touchdowns in 2 drives to start the season. George Kittle had. He might be up there with Puka and JSN for all we know right now, but he's not. And accordingly, Jake Tunges, my favorite player in the NFL, I do think he'll put together another tight end one worthy week before we get George Kittle back ready to do his thing and terrorize the rest of the NFL. Guys, that's going to do it for our rankings portion of the show. But as always, it's time to answer some start sits presented by Xfinity. It's time for some Fantasy Live Start Sits brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy. Xfinity. Imagine that. Dwayne, we've got plenty of great questions here through the chat. I am about to pull them up right now, and we can go ahead and get through it. We'll be using our Xfinity Start Sit tool throughout, so keep an eye out for that. So my vision is not what it used to be. I'll get it up here on the laptop. Starting off with Kevin, Dwayne, Harold Fannin, or Juwan Johnson. Probably Juwan here. We did see a little bit of a reduced role there from Njoku.
Yeah, I still lean Juwan.
Bigger
here.
role, yeah.
A bigger role for Njoku. I lean Juwan. The start sit tool, thank you, Xfinity, also goes Juwan. And guys, you can go in here and you can actually put in what kind of matchup you're in. Toss up, underdog. Are you a favorite? You can change your scoring system. Are you in a PPR? If you want to sync your league, you can have your customized scoring system. And then also notice for these pesky questions, some of you guys ask us where you tell us to choose 5 starters out of 8 players. This tool will not hold that against you. You can actually hit the drop down button and say, I need this many players. I think we do max you out at 7. So you're going to have to show some sort of restraint there. But it does lean to Juwan Johnson. He's got the higher ceiling here. I do have this set on PPR right now. His weekly projection is 9.33 versus Harold Fannin at 8.25. If you look at our rankers, they also have Juwan Johnson.
I already fired up the next one in the Xfinity Start Sit tool. Troy Franklin or Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed is getting the nod here. I really do like Troy Franklin this week, Dwayne. I was doing some research again, looking at the number 2 wide receiver that's been getting to take advantage of non-Sauce Gardner matchups. Obviously lost DJ Reed in the offseason. So I like Troy Franklin, but it is going to be Rashid Shaheed from us here. Do you agree with the tool, Dwayne?
Totally agree. Look, and the one thing with Troy Franklin, and we've seen a little bit less utilization from him over the last 2 games. We've seen Pat Bryant also eating into a few of those reps. So we were up over 90% for 1 week, have had 2 or 3 weeks where we've been over 80% route participation. But he's hovering closer to that 80 now, which is still fine. Like it's still, like you said, it's a good matchup, but I would go Rashid Shaheed here. And like you said, the tool does agree.
Hassan Haskins or Zach Charbonnet in half PPR. I think it's a situation, Dwayne, where for me, Zach Charbonnet is enough of an ingrained role for me to go ahead and take that. That's how little we kind of think of this Chargers backfield right now.
Yeah, and we do have Charbonnet ahead. So this is one, Ian, switch the toss up to you're an underdog. Show folks how that works. So you switch this over to underdog, and look, that's where you would want to start Haskins, because the theoretical unknown ceiling of Haskins is higher, because what if he does come out and get 70% of the rushing attempts? Then that means in that sort of matchup, I would want to go with Haskins. If I am a toss-up or I'm a favorite, I want to go with Zach Charbonnet.
Again, cool detail there. And honestly, that's what we try to tell people a lot of times. If you are, getting that 60% chance of winning, you can play it a little bit safer. Obviously, sometimes, though, you got to shoot for the moon. So we'll be doing that with Haskins if necessary. Romeo Doubs or Calvin Ridley. I'm going with Calvin Ridley again, Dwayne. It was a good matchup last week, but guess what? It's another good matchup this week.
I can't believe there was a question that had the word Romeo Doubs in it, and you didn't just say Romeo Doubs immediately. But yeah, I'm pulling up Dobbs. Who is it? Dobbs versus Ridley?
Ridley, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have Ridley. I already know I have Ridley ahead in my ranks. And the production model, if you look at it as a toss-up, is actually going Romeo Doubs over it, Ian. Wow. Now, I don't know what scoring format is, but it's really close. 22.64 best ceiling for Doubs, 21.67 for Ridley. If you look at their baseline projections, it's 10.09 versus 9.89, guys. So some of these, you got to look at it. And if you still like your gut still says Ridley, just realize that's 0.3 points that we've got these guys separated by right there, right? Or sorry, 0.2. So it's very, very close. So just keep those things in mind. So if you still have a gut call on a player and it's that close, go with the one that you like. But I'm with you, Ian. In this case, I would go Ridley.
Again, we do have 5 alleged expert rankers here at Fantasy Life. So sometimes Dwayne and I get boxed out in situations like this. That said, Dwayne, from Miles H, start 2 between Franklin, Dobbs, and Higgins. Definitely Higgins. I'm starting him. I'll go ahead and fire up the tool. I think, man, I'm feeling so good with my Troy Franklin research. I want to say him, Dwayne. I could see going Dobbs here. Who are you going with as the second one?
Yeah, the tool shows Higgins and Dobbs as being the top 2 players to use. But again, once you get to Dobbs and Troy Franklin, you're pretty close. I think Higgins is clearly in here. He's almost 1 point ahead of Romeo Dobbs in the weekly projection. He is almost 1 point ahead in the ceiling as well in this scenario. I think Romeo Dobbs v. Troy Franklin, like we just talked about, like you guys can make a call on that one. It's a little bit closer, but the tool is preferring Romeo Dobbs here. And Ian, if you scroll down, you can actually see also like what other people are doing. So you can actually see the percentage of time that Romeo Dobbs is starting is 4% right now. He's rostered in 86%. Even though Troy Franklin is rostered less, more people are starting Troy Franklin this weekend, 28% of the time. So it doesn't factor into the way that the model is working, but it's just good context that we give to you guys so you can see what other fantasy managers are doing.
Next up, we have a tricky cross position question, which again is handy having a tool like this one. Tucker Kraft, Jameson Williams, or Devontae Smith, Dwayne. Again, I do think Kraft has some boom potential this week. We talked about JMO being a downgrade. I would go Devontae Smith over JMO. It just kind of comes down to how we're feeling about Tucker Kraft. It's looking like, though, we are in fact leaning towards Tucker Kraft. And honestly, man, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, if you need the ceiling, slight edge here to Devontae Smith, which you guys know, wide receivers just have higher ceilings than tight ends. They're the guys that can more easily go off for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. So JMO, yeah, does get the ceiling, and that's what we were talking about earlier with JMO. If you come in and you look at your matchup, but then look at his bust potential, right? He's got the lowest bust score and he's got the lowest weekly projection score. So if you're a toss-up, you're an underdog, you're definitely not going with JMO. But if you need the ceiling, you're really deciding between JMO and Devontae Smith. Just straight up, Tucker Kraft is the choice.
Really love how you put this tool together, Dwayne. It's like we're talking to people with the tool. Of course, cool to talk to you guys generally as well. From Kevin, Kamani Vidal or Brashard Smith. I don't think we need to put that one in the tool. It is absolutely Kamani Vidal. I know we all want Brashard Smith to happen, guys, but he is fully locked in as just a pure gadget. We have not seen that jump in utilization yet. We will let you know when we do. From Ivusen, Vidal or Travion Henderson in full PPR. Again, Dwayne, it very well could be Vidal in a few weeks, but it is going to be Henderson for right now. Just so much unknown in Los Angeles. We at least know what we're getting with Henderson in New England. From Never Had It So Good. I love it. Oh yeah, tight end Travis Kelce or pick up Njoku or Mason Taylor. I think we're still going with Kelce there. Yeah.
Yeah, Kelce's still going to come out ahead. I already know we have him ranked higher, and he's going to have a better projection than those 2 players. I'm going to check Mason Taylor. I am responsible for the projections, guys, so I really try to look at it through a view of not being slanted. But yes, he still does come in with the higher. It still comes in with the higher projection. Yeah, so it's Kelce.
Kelce looked, his hands have been a little iffy, but he's actually looked a little better than I expected this year in terms of a yak player. From Jamie, full PPR start 2, Bourne, Shaheed, Kupp, or Robinson. Definitely not DeMarcus Robinson. I would say Kendrick Bourne, Rashid Shaheed, Dwayne, assuming Parasol's out, which I do think is safe. Oh, Wan'Dale Robinson. Ooh, Wan'Dale Robinson. And then if Parasol is indeed out, Kendrick Bourne, otherwise Shaheed. What do you think?
Wait, so I'm just adding Wan'Dale in. So yeah, right now I've not updated the projections to say anything about Juwan Jennings because we don't know yet. We do have Ricky Pearsall out of the lineup right now. So right now projections reflect Juwan Jennings playing plus Kendrick Bourne on the field. And so he comes in, if you're looking at Wan'Dale versus Rashid Shaheed versus Cooper Kupp and Bourne, and you're in a toss-up, it does actually give the best weekly projection slightly to Wan'Dale. I'm going to say I would start Rashid Shaheed though, Ian. And I know that I'm pretty sure I have Rashid Shaheed ahead in my ranks.
He's got 2, so Shaheed and Wan'Dale tentatively, again, just kind of keep an eye. Yeah, and just keep an eye on what exactly is going to be going on with Kendrick Bourne and company. Again, we do have the matchups on here as well, so I think it's very fine considering your situation. Start Wandale tonight. If we do find out that Jawan and Pearsall are out, I would prefer Kendrick over Shaheed. Just really try to be paying attention on Sunday because you do have that late afternoon kickoff for Bourne.
I will say this, because you have Cooper Kupp also as a backup plan to Wandale, and they're a point.
He plays a
1.9 points apart. Right. But if we do get information ahead of the game, it's not necessarily that we're going to get it right at game time. So if we were able to gather more information, that would be the one thing you could consider. It gives you a little bit more time to find out about Juwan Jennings. And if we did hear that Juwan Jennings was not going to play before Sunday, he's going to move ahead of these other guys. So Shaheed would still be locked in, but then you have a choice of Kendrick Bourne and Kupp. So I'm actually okay with that, Ian. I know the projection here says to go with Wandale, but if you look at their baseline projection, it's not like he's way ahead of Cooper Kupp, like they're separated by less than 1 point here. So I kind of lean towards going Shaheed, leaving Wandale out of the mix, and you leave the upside open for being able to start Kendrick Bourne if there's no Juwan Jennings, and if not, you still have a really good fallback plan with Cooper Kupp.
That's actually well put. Again, difference between Wandale and Kupp, not horrible. Like you're not screwing yourself by any stretch of the imagination. Kupp could easily outscore him. So why not go ahead and try to leave yourself open to the best case scenario? I like that call. From Steven, Henry or Dowdle? Yes, we are in fact going Rico Dowdle over Derrick Henry. It is wild to say that out loud, but that is the world we live in. From N Gelatina, whatever your name is, appreciate you. PPR, Cam Scatterboot, Travion Henderson, or Olave. I'm leaning Cam Scatterboot, Dwayne. I'll see what the tool says.
Yeah, it's not. Henderson's not going to be close. Olave is probably going to project better because wide receiver ceiling. Actually, Scatterboot's got the better ceiling at 29.4, and it is accounting for Tyrone Tracy coming back, guys. So yeah, this one's a really close call.
Higher bust.
Yeah, higher bust rate for Scatterboot, higher ceiling for Scatterboot, and then you've got a slightly better median projection for Chris Olave. So I'm in a PP. Is this PPR?
Believe so.
Okay. Yeah. So we can change the scoring format as well. But if this were to, guys, it's important to put your scoring format. So Ian, change it to half real quick and watch what happens. You'll definitely be going.
We had it on half. I went to PPR and now we got Olave. How about them apples?
Yeah. So it comes down to your scoring format there. If you're in a half PPR, you're going Scatterboot. If you're playing in a full PPR, I'm going to Olave because I do think there's just enough risky. And we all want to believe in Scatterboot. He's such a fun story. But would we be surprised if they were now splitting the backfield again and they have Devin Singletary still getting his 10%? Then we're into the whole idea of the Giants backfield now becomes the Saints or becomes the Seahawks backfield and becomes the Patriots backfield. And their offense is not as good as either one of those teams. And we're not rushing to start those backs.
You are onto something there, my friend. I love the idea of a Cam Scatterboot, but yes, again, full PPR, Olave probably is to play. Ramondre Stevenson or Kendre Miller. Looks like it's pretty cleanly Ramondre Stevenson, Dwayne. Again, two guys and two RB backfields, but unless Alvin Kamara gets ruled out, which again doesn't seem particularly likely, we are going with Stevenson. Did have one more from Lucky Tom. Travis Hunter, Jameson Williams, or Troy Franklin. Dwayne, that is a good one to end on.
A lot of Troy Franklin questions. Travis Hunter, Jameson Williams. I'm putting them in. And then who was the final one? Hunter Williams and Franklin. Oh yeah, I just said his name. Duh, Dwayne, you idiot. All right. So if we're talking half PPR here and you're looking at this, being a toss-up matchup, we're leaning to JMO as the guy that we would be going with. And then it's Troy Franklin. And it's a sad day to say that Travis Hunter is the third option here, Ian. He and Troy Franklin are really close. We liked what we saw, guys, with the way that they used Travis Hunter in that game down the field. But we still have the thing hanging over of us is he's not going to stop playing cornerback. We just don't know how much they're going to use him on offense. He's had a 70% route participation in the last two games. So looking at half PPR as well as full PPR, it is Jameson Williams still coming out as the top play of those three. And I agree with that. And we both have JMO ranked higher than those two guys, I'm pretty sure.
I did see two more quick ones from Matt. We will go Drake May over Justin Herbert, and we would also pick Rashid Shaheed over Matthew Golden and Hassan Haskins. So with that, everyone, going to wrap up this edition of the Fantasy Life Show. I will be back with Chris Allen, 10 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning if you have more start-sit questions. Again, though, check out our tool and our Fantasy Life rankings in the meantime if you're into that kind of thing. So we appreciate you guys. As always, if you like the show, then like the show. Always helps us out if you hit that subscribe button as well. So for Dwayne, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, for producer Tony, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, take care, everybody.